Growing up, I was raised with Star Wars, specifically the prequels. The first movie I remember watching in theaters was Revenge of the Sith. I remember all the toys, merchandise, and hype surrounding what we thought was the last Star Wars film.
What if someone else beside you came to you and said, I want to make episode 7? Could you see that happening?
No.
Since then, I've not only loved the films, but I've also fell in love with the novels, comic books, fan films, TV series, even YouTubers. So you can imagine my excitement when it was announced that Star Wars was returning to the big screen. Not the 3D Phantom Menace, though I did go see that too, and it was hype as shit! When The Force Awakens was finally released, I loved it. It was a nostalgia fest through and through, and it filled me with all those little emotions I'd craved in a new Star Wars movie. I was so excited to see the next film in the saga, to see where it would all go. And then I watched The Last Jedi. Needless to say, I didn't really like Episode 8. I fucking hated it. And I've since changed my mind regarding The Force Awakens. I've gone back to what I love before Disney purchased Lucasfilm, the comics, the video games, what I really fell in love with, the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now Legends. After all, that's what my love of Star Wars is really founded on. That's how I expressed it from day to day. But there is one thing I never really liked in the Expanded Universe, and that's the resurrection of Palpatine in Dark Empire. Now, it makes complete sense for someone like Palpatine to seek immortality and to find a way to come back, especially in the context of the EU, but my contention has always been that it lessened Vader's sacrifice, not wholly, but to a degree. And now that seems to be what's happening in Episode 9, at least that's what's been implied and the direction I think they're going in. I've seen a lot of fans of the sequel trilogy complaining about this, for the same reasons I don't like Palpatine's resurrection in the Dark Empire, that it undermines the victories of the original trilogy, but isn't that what the sequel trilogy is founded on? When people complain about how similar The Force Awakens is to A New Hope, it extends beyond basic plot structure. It also refers to the state of the galaxy, how it's evolved and changed in this 30-year span, and it's the same. In The Force Awakens, we learn that the Jedi Order once again has been destroyed, off-screen this time, and by a former Jedi who turned to the dark side and is now conflicted. The Republic that the OT characters fought to create is obliterated in a 2-minute, 24-second scene, and we're left with another Empire versus Rebellion story. They even shamelessly refer to the Resistance as the Rebels in The Last Jedi consistently. Or inconsistently, it's kind of a mess. Han and Leia's relationship is in shambles, and Luke is a miserable old hermit whose first thought was to murder his sleeping nephew because he had bad dreams, but we can talk about this later. So when people complain about Palpatine coming back, even if he does, it doesn't change the fact that the OT is basically a footnote leading to the same derivative premise. As flawed as the prequels are, and whatever your views on the Yuzhan Vong War may be, both conflicts were both new and interesting, engaging and unique within the Star Wars setting. Resurrecting Palpatine changes nothing because making the legacy characters miserable failures is nothing new. In fact, it's what the sequels are best at. So, going into Episode 9, the only way I see myself enjoying this movie is by switching off my brain and watching Ian McDiarmid do what he does best, as minimal or as extensive as his role may be.